Hello, hello. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me back. Not that you guys had any choice in the matter, but I'm glad to be here nonetheless. It's interesting whenever you go to a sporting event, they always have someone dressed up as something. What do you call that person? The mascot, exactly. You guys have a mascot, right? Yeah, it's an eagle, correct? Do you have someone that dresses up as an eagle and goes on the field and stuff? Where is he at? Right there? All right. Are people allowed to know that you're the mascot? Ooh, okay. Don't look over there. There's nothing to see on that side of the room. Okay, so this idea of having something that represents you, because your football team, like, you've got your quarterback, you've got your center, you've got your running backs, all of them play a part, but none of you, unless you are those players, can say, oh, I'm also the quarterback, or but you're all Eagles. So when the eagle comes out on the field, it represents all of you. My in-laws live in Florida, and Florida State's mascot, anyone know what it is? The Seminoles, which is a tribe of Native Americans. And so that's the mascot for their university. And there was a group of people a while back who tried to get that shut down. They were like, this is not right, and they should not use the Seminoles. And they thought they were doing something great. And then the chief of the Seminole tribe released a statement that was like, please stop. Please stop talking on our behalf. We love it. They contract with our tribe. We're the only ones that get to ride out in front of them. It's actual Seminole tribe members that do all the stuff. We have a great relationship with the school. Just stop. What are you doing? You don't speak for us. And I thought that was personally hilarious, because it was these people that are like, it's so mean. You're being mean to them. And they're like, no, they're not. We like it. But in every sport across America, there's a mascot, and that mascot represents everyone. And so the Seminole tribe, in allowing the university to use their tribe as their mascot, is saying, hey, you're all Seminoles. We're inviting you into the tribe of the Seminoles, and now you can wear our name on your jerseys, on your sweatshirts, on all this stuff. And it represents and it unifies the school, because even though you're not the quarterback on the field, you can say, hey, I'm an eagle too. So when that eagle comes out, that represents me. In the Old Testament, God gave instructions to his people to build an ark, and not like the one with all the animals, but the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant was something so absolutely magnificent that if anybody touched it, that person would die, because the Ark of the Covenant represented everything that unified them together as a people, and also the presence of the Lord. But the Ark of the Covenant was also a box. And what do you do with a box? Put stuff in the box. Yeah. And so God was like, hey, I want you to build this ark. I want you to cover it 100% in gold. I want you to build these cherubim over the top, and I want it to march out before you in battle. So if you had something completely made of, or in this case, covered in gold, that wouldn't usually be what you would send out in front of you in battle. But God said, hey, this is going to symbolize, it's going to represent me. It's going to represent my blessing on you as a people, my presence with you as a people. And also, unlike a mascot, which is a person with an eagle head or whatever on, he told them to put some very specific, very important things inside the ark. And I was reading through, or I am reading through the Bible this year once again. And as I'm reading through the Old Testament, I was struck once again by the amount of detail, the care that was taken by God to explain how to build the ark and the precise measurements of everything. It's all in cubits, so I don't know exactly how big a cubit is. I'm sure we can figure that out, but it's all like this many cubits wide and this many cubits deep, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to carve it like this, and then over time God also told his people in various stages, hey, this thing is so important. I want you to open up the Ark of the Covenant, and I want you to put this item in it. Anybody know what's in the Ark of the Covenant? What was put in it? Name one thing. What? The Ten Commandments. Fantastic. Great job. 10 points for Gryffindor. What else was in the Ark of the Covenant? A jar of manna. Yes, thank you. Last thing that was in the Ark of the Covenant, what was it? What? A staff. Yes. Well done, man. You guys nailed that one. All right. So, we have the complete list in Hebrews chapter 9, verse 4. It says, the Ark of the Covenant covered on all sides with gold, in which was a golden urn holding manna, Aaron's staff that had budded, and the tablets of the covenant. So sometimes when Christians today approach the Old Testament, they approach it in a way that is like, okay, this may have been important at one time, but now, we're in the New Testament, so all of this is kind of just passé. And that is such a wrong way to approach the Old Testament. The New Testament would make no sense whatsoever without the Old Testament. Every single part of the New Testament is built upon the foundation of the Old Testament. And I actually don't love that it's called Old Testament and New Testament, because it makes it sound like, well, this one's old, so we don't really need that anymore. But when you understand the Old Testament, it brings to light the New Testament in a brand new way. And the Ark of the Covenant is no exception to that. When we know and understand the symbolic nature and the power that was in the Ark of the Covenant, we understand what God has to say to us today through those items that were placed inside of it. It is way, way too much to get into all of what the ark was and represented and all of that. So I just want to instead take the lid off of the ark and look inside at the three items and what God may want to speak to each of us today based on those three items. So we're talking about God's promise, God's provision, and God's purpose as represented in the Ark of the Covenant for us. So the first thing that we want to look at that was in the ark, and someone mentioned it over here, is what? The tablets, which contained what? The 10 Commandments. Exactly. So God wrote 10 commandments for his people. There's actually, if you add up all the commandments that God gave his people in the Old Testament, there's about 613 of them. But there's 10 that he wrote with his own hand on tablets of stone. And he told Moses, put those in the ark. Now, here's the thing about the 10 Commandments. Without the New Testament, the 10 Commandments are kind of a bummer. And here's why. I want to ask you to be real honest for a second, remembering that some of the 10 commandments are don't lie, don't covet, don't desire something that's not yours. Raise your hand if you've broken one of the 10 commandments. Okay, so that's 100% of us. Or if you didn't raise your hand, also 100% of us, because you're a liar. So the Old Testament, the covenant, the laws and commandments that God gave his people actually point to a promise, because the law reveals our need for something more. The law reveals that we are broken and we are sinners, because not one of us, despite our best efforts, can actually live according to the law. Like I said, there's 613, but I only asked you about the 10 written on the tablet. And even then, we couldn't do it. But Jesus, when he came, he said, I have fulfilled the law. Matthew 5:17, I have not come to abolish, but to fulfill the law. So those covenants, those 10 commandments, they point to the promise that God will one day provide a way for us to be made justified before the Lord, to be made holy. Not that we don't continue to strive for righteousness, but because we recognize we never actually can be righteous on our own merit, Jesus provided a way for us. And so that grace becomes our promise, because in Christ we receive what we could never earn. So the first thing I want to remind us of and put our hearts to as we reflect on the Ark of the Covenant is that those tablets point to Jesus. They point to the promise that God was making his people. And we can hold on to that promise, and that promise becomes our salvation and the grace that's been given to us. The second thing I want to talk about that's inside the ark is the jar of manna. Now, what is manna? Bread. I mean, essentially bread, produced in a very different way than any way you could possibly produce bread. My wife has gotten super into sourdough, and she basically wraps our entire family schedule around what her sourdough wants. It has become the favored child of our family. She's like, no, sorry, we can't go yet. The sourdough is almost ready to do what it wants. I don't know. She's always like measuring it and writing lines on glass jars and like, oh, the bubbles, oh, the bubbles. What the heck? So the people of Israel, when they were wandering through the desert, they didn't have time to wrap their schedule around what the sourdough wanted. There was also nowhere to get food. When I was in Israel a few years ago, we went out into what is called the wilderness of Zin, and it is a desolate place. There is nothing there. It's just sand and rock forever. So I imagine when God led his people out there, they were going, what the heck? We're going to die. In fact, that's what they said. I wish we had died in Egypt, because now we're going to die out here in the wilderness. So God provided not a week's worth, but a day's worth of bread, of manna. And when Jesus taught his disciples to pray, he said, give us this day what? Our daily bread. In other words, he was reminding them of the manna. So the manna reminds us of God's daily provision. In the book of Psalms, it also describes the Bible, the Word of God, as a lamp, what? unto our feet. So it's not a spotlight that shines out in front of our entire path. It gives you enough for your next step. And so when we look at the manna that God said, preserve this inside of there, it reminds us that God provides daily. God provides one step at a time. God provides what we need when we need it. Now, we don't often like that because we want to know what the whole path is. We want to know what the whole plan is. We want to have everything we need for the next 5 years. But the promise that we can depend on as we reflect on the Ark of the Covenant is that God is our daily provision. He's going to give you what you need today if you depend on him, if you turn to him. Now, if somebody didn't go out and gather manna in the morning, guess how much manna they would have for the rest of the day? None. They would have a very hungry day. God wasn't force-feeding them the manna, he was providing it, and he does the same for us. If we seek him, he will provide for us. And the last is Aaron's staff. Now this, I wish we could go into the incredible account of Aaron's staff, but essentially the people of Israel were like, how come he gets to be the priest? How come we all don't get to be the priests? And God said, hey, write your names on your staffs, put them in my presence, walk out, come back in, pick up the staffs, and I'll give you your answer. And they picked up the staffs, and Aaron's staff, the priest of the Lord, had not only sprouted, it had flowers on it, it had leaves on it, it even had ripe almonds on it. Now, this is a staff. This is a dead piece of wood that he's been walking around in the desert with, and it's got ripe almonds. Now, that would be amazing, especially if they just kept growing and he could just crack almonds all day and off his staff and eat them. But God said, put that staff in the ark as a reminder. Now, for us, it's crazy because in so many places in the New Testament, we are referred to as the priests. They wanted to be the priests, and God was like, no, I chose one. And now God says, I have made each and every one of you priests. In 1 Peter 2:5, he says, you are a holy priesthood. And in 2 Peter 2:9 and 10, he says, you are a holy nation and a royal priesthood. In other words, that staff that once only belonged to Aaron now belongs to each of us. And God has made each of us who call upon the name of the Lord priests in the people of God. We are called to be ministers. We are called to spread the gospel. We are called to be the light in dark places. So God has given each of us and reminded each of us in the Ark of the Covenant as those foundations of the Old Testament sprouted anew in the New Testament. He's reminded us of his promises, his provision, and his purpose for us. My hope and my prayer is that we would live in each of those today. Thanks for having me.
This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK-12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.